That's not nice.
It could be true, though. Alright, here we go into Game 3 in a best-of-3 series being played for the round of 64 of the SoundBlaster Tactic3D Pro-Am tournament, presented by Fry's Electronics, hosted by Complexity Gaming, cast by me, AskJoshy on YouTube, and with me is JP McDaniel all day long from State of the Game and MLG. So far, each player has a win against their Terran teammate, and Tal'Darim Altar is going to be the deciding map to see basically who goes on to face Idra next. So mOoNan on that second map actually basically just doing a tank Viking contain long enough to constrict QXC. He denied expansions, and that's really a pretty solid tactic on these larger maps in TVT. Do you think we'll be seeing kind of more of the same here on Tal'Darim Altar?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one player might try to quote-unquote cheese. If it's anyone, it's just going to... It won't be cheese, it's just going to be QXC doing that constant aggression. But going back to that last game, really, mOoNan's third, getting that third much earlier than QXC was able to, really put him ahead. He was able to get bigger numbers at that contain and always just keep the pressure on. Also, QXC meant to do more damage with that Banshee with Cloak opening, and it was denied. Never even fired those rockets down onto the SCVs. So QXC definitely was not allowed to do what he wanted last game, but sometimes that happens in StarCraft 2.
Definitely true. If everyone just let everyone do what they want, there would be... chaos, JP. You have to try and keep your opponent in check. Well, I don't know. If they both were just like, yeah, do whatever you want and I'll do whatever I want, then obviously one player would have a much better composition just as a result. But obviously this game has a lot of give and take. You want to deny your opponent any sort of advantages throughout the game. You want to counter him as fast as possible, and TVT just sort of an even playing field for these guys. And once again, we see top left and bottom left spawns for these guys, just like we saw on that last map, Crevasse. But Tal'Darim Alter's structure is a little bit different. You can see that sort of scouting path that they took on the minimap is a lot more direct. There's no like destructible rocks and debris and things in the way for these guys. So a very quick, it's actually a much quicker attack path than we just saw in Crevasse, even though they're the same spawn positions. And again, on Tal'Darim Altar, these tanks can make a huge difference. Here at the natural, mOoNan really doesn't have a lot of options. He's going to essentially have to take his natural, and tanks can be a huge headache. And yeah, he's already got that silhouette there for the command center.
Yep. For the third game in a row, mOoNan is going to be doing the 1 racks expand, getting gas, I guess maybe a little bit earlier, but it's not too much of a difference than we've seen in the past. QXC opening up with the factory, not doing an expansion just yet. Might see somewhat of a Marine Hellion push out of him later on. Always going to be adding on that second command center fairly early, though, as soon as he sees his opponent has done so as well. Factory finished, probably going to see a Hellion immediately begin to produce. And without a bunker just yet, mOoNan might actually have some trouble. He needs to get that bunker down at the natural so he can defend. And there's the bunker finally going down, so he can defend any Hellions or a Hellion Marine timing.
Yeah, but again, if QXC gets that starport, he is actually already getting in starport. If he does some more drop tactics again, that can be a very easy, simple way to circumvent that front defense and can still do quite a lot of damage. So we'll see how clever QXC wants to try to be with this. mOoNan does see the Hellion now as his scouting SCV is getting roasted in the face, so even though it didn't get into the base, it can kind of assume what's going on in there. Starport about to finish for QXC. He is actually just hanging out with his Marines for the time being, but we'll see once this Hellion arrives if he's going to be able to try and sneak past this bunker. I don't imagine that he will until he gets a medevac out, but we'll see. You never know what QXC is going to do. He's very aggressive.
Yep, this is kind of reminiscent of the Shakuras Plateau game, except I think QXC by this time did have his expansion started, but it looks like he's just going to be doing this constant aggression. He does have a medevac started, so he might just be waiting for that medevac to actually load up and then start the drop play onto that natural. He's thinking about maybe running these 2 Hellions by that bunker, but then falls back at the last second. I would probably suspect a command center should be going down here very, very soon for the purple Terran player, QXC.
I wonder if QXC is actually just trying to show these Hellions at the front to try and get mOoNan into a sort of defensive position so that he can do a drop. Like, that's... I don't know why I'm like thinking 90% that QXC is going to be doing something with this first medevac, but I don't know for sure. It is headed right over there. He could do a full octo drop and hit with those Hellions from the front, and actually, yeah, he's going to load up. Like, he just does this so often that it's almost like guaranteed. I don't know if mOoNan's going to be ready for it, but here we go. The Marines are already parachuting down. They're going to take out a couple of SCVs pretty quickly here, and they're in the front on the minimap. You can also see those Hellions waiting. They're just waiting for those Marines to unload from the bunker so they can run in and try and get in that natural. mOoNan does have a few Marines and a tank here, but QXC could actually just load up and head back into the main now. There's no SCVs to shoot at, and the Hellions are not going to be able to get in the front through that supply depot bunker wall off. QXC is moving around to the side now. mOoNan has a Marine waiting, and yeah, he's going to be quick enough to get over there with those the rest of those Marines. So QXC might just be good here to leave completely, take the SCV kills that he got, and just be happy with it, because I don't know what he's going to be able to do beyond this.
Yep, he's trying to land once again at the natural, and every second that he denies really mining from this orbital command, it's going to allow him to actually get his natural command center set up and get fully mined. But it looks like QXC is going to have to pull back for now. The medevac is kind of wandering around trying to figure out the best way to drop in. He's going to try to drop once more. There are some Marines nearby, though. That one Marine does get dropped off and immediately picked up. QXC wanted to run these Hellions here at the front of mOoNan's base in, but I believe this wall off does actually completely wall off. There might be a little bit of area where someone can drop in. But mOoNan now setting up the missile turret, and looks like he's going to be doing a drop of zone. QXC might be able to sneak into the back of mOoNan's base, but oh no, there's a Viking here.
Oh.
Is that medevac going to die before the Marines get out? 2 Marines get out, but that is going to stop the plan of QXC to ferrying those Hellions in. And now we're going to be paying attention to the medevac of mOoNan, as it's actually going for a drop into the main mineral line of QXC.
Yeah, and QXC really doesn't have a lot of units hanging back at home either. He's, like I said, such an aggressive player. He's got a handful of Marines that could help deter this drop, but I think a lot of SCVs are going to die here. If he doesn't pull quickly, he's going to lose just 1 SCV, so that actually was quick enough to save himself some pain and anguish, but I, again, don't know if he has enough units to really get all of this out of his hair. He is going to lose a supply depot pretty quickly here. Now SCV's actually running drill first into those little guys, and mOoNan, what is he doing back at his main? Just still making more tanks and Marines. It looks like he is going to take his gains there and try to head back home, while this Viking is trying to sniff out that medevac. I don't think he's going to find him, though.
Yep, I think that medevac will be able to return home. Let's check out supplies. Both players sitting right around 77, 78 supply. QXC a little bit farther out of his base compared to mOoNan. One of the things that really this can hurt you is the fact that if your opponent notices this, he could just drop your production facilities and pretty much destroy you by taking out what could be your potential army. But he doesn't have the medevacs to do that just yet, and QXC does not really have a huge force, a big enough force to actually push into mOoNan. But I think you mentioned it earlier, the fact that on this map you can siege up right outside around the refinery of your opponent's natural refinery, and if you have tanks set up there, you can easily shell the expansion, and it looks like that's exactly what QXC is about to set up and do.
Indeed, and also mOoNan is on the low ground here trying to keep this from happening. Unfortunately, he did just lose a lot of Marines right as those tanks sieged up. Now he's trying to get into a good position on the high ground to prevent losing all these SCVs. QXC just lost his spotting Viking, though, to that single turret, so he's not going to be happy with that. And mOoNan actually looking safe once again. QXC is going to have to drop scans if he wants to continue with this assault.
Yep, all of the SCVs have been pulled. He's going to try to secure what should be his third, and I guess we'll call it his second expansion now, because his second is actually not mining anymore. QXC has started his third command center, but it is not anywhere near being complete. mOoNan actually setting up some tanks here on the high ground. They do take a ton of damage from QXC's tanks. Now the Viking is going to be back in place, and more shells will be coming out of those tanks. Now they're going to start shelling that command center. It is not being repaired yet. He might actually be able to take that down before it begins to get repaired.
Yeah, mOoNan is actually nowhere near with those SCVs. Waited a long time to lift. Minute. And here comes some SCVs to try and save that little guy, but Viking now taking a few free shots at it as well. He's got the repair started, so it looks like he is going to save it after all. QXC still adding on to this force outside of mOoNan's base. More Vikings, Marines, and tanks coming all the time. QXC does have about a 30 supply lead right now, and since his economy really hasn't been injured very much at all, he's up by 8 harvesters as well, so he's got to be liking his position right now. Still sieging up on the low ground, actually getting some free shots at mOoNan's tanks now, getting 2 free kills, so mOoNan starting to fall apart here at the seams. QXC did a good job making sure that he would be able to get into this position. He never let up on mOoNan. He defended back in his base when he had to, but he never sort of went back to that Xel'Naga tower. He wanted to make sure that he had enough Marines and Hellions there to get to this position where he can get his tanks up safely, and now mOoNan is paying the price for not breaking that contain earlier in the game.
Looks like mOoNan is trying to do a ring around here with these Marines and 2 medevacs. QXC did have some Marines of his own spot that, so I don't think he's going to be able to do too much damage, as QXC should pull back some units, but that is quite a bit of Marines. He might actually just drop straight into the main from there, as 2 Marines do exist at what kind of could be a 4th base for QXC. In the meantime, we have this contain still existing at the natural base. Some Marines loaded up into the medevac. He's going to drop those just to see what exactly is going on. The Viking of QXC did in fact just die. QXC trying to drop some Marines onto the tanks here of mOoNan. And here comes the Vikings. And a huge drop at the natural for mOoNan of QXC. Those Marines are in place though, and I think mOoNan will actually be the one to retreat there, as he does lose the medevac.
Yeah, and he actually, while that was going on by mOoNan's base, I was already watching the drop. The turret actually took out that first medevac one with still 3 Marines inside, so mOoNan just right from the outset of that drop was pretty much doomed. But QXC setting up another sensor tower now. He really hates being dropped on. He wants that tactic to be all his, and he is just doing everything he can to prevent mOoNan from doing some counter drops. He's still up by about 15 supply, but these tank wars are getting really intricate here. mOoNan actually getting a favorable exchange, but then moving a little too close with his own tanks, and now QXC looks to be slightly ahead. But yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth right now. The fact that mOoNan still has not been mining out of his natural for so long is one thing, but QXC does have his 3rd base up, and he's still even on harvesters, surprisingly.
Yep, another drop. I thought would be a big drop for mOoNan into the 3rd. He decides to just land it on the ground. QXC has 2 sensor towers set up in a Venn diagram, so to speak, and he can see any drops that come into his base, so great positioning on those. Now I think QXC is finally going to be able to, or excuse me, mOoNan is finally going to be able to begin mining. Oh no, what are those mules doing?
Go suiciding. Back to work,
mules.
Yeah.
No, one of them does go down. We have a ton of mules and SCVs just kind of chilling out right now at the natural, as the siege tank does start to shell. 11 kills on that. Okay, it's finally going to be taken out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, QXC is looking like he might be moving out for another attack here.
mOoNan was paying too much attention perhaps at QXC's 3rd, and right now QXC is paying too much attention somewhere else. He just lost all the last remaining Marines that he had, and he's going to lose this Viking. So QXC, his contain is broken, his economy is still strong, he's still up by 40 supply, and now he's dropping those Marines right onto the face of these tanks. Not sure if he's going to be able to kill everything mOoNan's got. It's actually more successful than I first imagined. mOoNan went around the bottom side to try and clean it up on the low ground rather than trying to defend on that high ground there, and I don't know if he's going to be able to kill off all these tanks. Now suddenly it does look like mOoNan is going to be able to kill off all the tanks. He's still not doing any mining from that natural though, and there's a Marine shooting a siege tank point blank. So mOoNan has to return and kill him off. Man, this is just exchange after exchange. It's amazing. Like, mOoNan actually has broken this contain twice now, but he's still down by 45 supply. So QXC really just needs to figure out a way to consolidate his forces, get it all into mOoNan's base at the same time. I would even suggest trying to drop just into his main with a bunch of tanks and Marines and trying to maybe kill off a production structure here or there, because this natural is finally up and running again, and mOoNan is situated on the low ground, so that contain's not going to happen again.
Yep, QXC is just getting ready to actually take his 4th base. His command center has already landed, and the SCVs are being transferred over. It dropped from QXC, landing some Marines at the natural mOoNan, and now both players are getting ready for this big attack. The stemmed Marines of mOoNan do move in. They're trying their best to actually take out QXC's force, and I think they're actually going to be able to do it. Look at the supply right now, 160 to 110, and somehow mOoNan is still winning these fights. If we look at the SCV count, we have 77 compared to 55 of mOoNan. So QXC definitely has the economic advantage here, but mOoNan is still holding it down.
mOoNan is trying to do an attack now at QXC's 4th, but it's a planetary fortress, so I don't see that going too well. And that whole time when QXC was losing his tanks just outside of mOoNan's natural, some Marines were actually stemmed up and killing off those SCVs at the natural again, so that did just further cement QXC's economic lead, even if he is losing his army over and over. Like I said, I'd really love it if he could just consolidate his forces with this huge supply lead and try something a little bit different, because this contain at the natural, I don't think it's going to work out anymore. mOoNan is basically stabilized there, and I don't think he's going to let QXC do too much harm to him at that entry point.
Indeed. So now we have mOoNan just kind of sitting behind the mineral line of QXC's 4th base. In the meantime, QXC is starting to scout out the map with some Marines. We have a 4th of mOoNan looking like it's getting ready to be taken. Small little force of QXC is going to be attacked here. Both players do have 2-2 upgrades, and a huge force here moving in for QXC, taking out this smaller force of mOoNan. And now it's going to be very hard for mOoNan to actually come back here. Some Marines do come in from the side, but QXC definitely has the army advantage here. Open up the army tab. His army is 4,000 compared to the 2,200 minerals used in mOoNan's army. About 50 supply ahead. Now mOoNan is once again in the defensive, kind of passive position that he's been in all game.
Yeah, and I really don't know how this game is ever going to end. Is if QXC keeps letting him expand to those other bases. He's actually mOoNan's mined out at his 3rd, and QXC should be here soon as well. But there we go, another big engagement. Tanks and Marines, as we've seen all game long, still just crashing into each other. QXC does have 3-2 upgrades on his bio, 1-0 upgrades on his tanks, and mOoNan only has 0-2 armor, actually 2-2, sorry, on his bio and nothing on his vehicles. So QXC slightly ahead in both attack upgrades, and he's got more supply still, now 55 or so supply ahead. mOoNan taking a sort of sneaky base down there at the 6 o'clock position, but QXC's fine with that because he's basically been unharmed this entire time on his SCV line. I just really wish QXC would try to do some more drops away from this natural, hit somewhere else. Obviously mOoNan knows you're there. He's gonna have all of his defenses there waiting for you.
Yeah, mOoNan does have some great siege tank placement here at his natural. He's able to kind of control where QXC actually enters his base. There is this huge wide open area, but with these tanks there, it's actually become kind of a choke point. QXC can only enter on the right side of it, and it looks like that is what he's aiming to do. I think a ton of SCVs were just pulled into the army of mOoNan, and this is what I was talking about earlier in one of the games, where you just load up and go actually drop onto your opponent's supply, or excuse me, unit producing structures. And mOoNan, is he going to actually do that? He's moving out at the same time. I'm not sure if he wants to look like he's actually attacking here. QXC is really hesitant to actually engage, and here goes mOoNan with a huge drop heading straight towards QXC's base. Or he's just going to elevator him down and maybe try for a pincer attack.
Well, he doesn't want to risk losing the medevacs. He doesn't want to just fly into the sensor tower range and have Vikings or Marines waiting for him. So he is just going to drop everything first, going to stem up those Marines and get the tank. Tank is really just like a helper at this point. And yeah, it's a good thing he did that drop, because now 2 medevacs both going down to those turrets. QXC is actually going to lose some SCVs, but he's done mining there, so really not too much of a loss for him. mOoNan actually doing damage to QXC is a new sight here for us. QXC is just going to crash right in here with about 20 Marines of his own, though, and clean this up pretty handily. Back over at mOoNan's bottom expansion, the 6 o'clock expansion, QXC is actually sieging up on the high ground. This is something I haven't seen since Lost Temple, and he's shelling away at this planetary fortress. So mOoNan gets cleaned up at QXC's 3rd. Even though it's mined out, he doesn't even care about that spot anymore. QXC still has the contain outside of mOoNan's natural, but mOoNan is moving on that now with some medevacs, Marines, and tanks, and he is actually going to get a decent siege before QXC's ready for it. QXC doesn't have basically any Marines left to defend against these tanks of mOoNan, but mOoNan really needs to unsiege and maybe do some Marine drops onto those tanks to be able to finish everything off. QXC is going to remain entrenched there. He's still got that cliff shelling at the planetary fortress. mOoNan might lose that if he doesn't start repairing it soon, but everything is going QXC's way essentially still.
Yeah, mOoNan was actually just dropping mules onto this siege tank line of QXC right outside of his base. I'm not sure if it actually killed any tanks, but I know it did quite some damage as the SCVs are having to repair that. Looks like QXC does have a new base up. He's going to morph that into a planetary fortress, and he's still having to deal with this attack right now from QXC. Looks like that tank is going to be taken out, and these Marines should be able to be dealt with. Yep. So, huge force actually for QXC right outside of mOoNan's base. I'm really not sure how he's going to be able to deal with this.
If QXC would just A-move everything, I think he might be able to do it, but mOoNan not going to be able to take that bottom right expansion. QXC's just on top of it, and this has to be kind of frustrating, disheartening for mOoNan to be so far in supply like this, so far behind in supply, excuse me, for this amount of time. He can't really take any bases. He tried to do a drop or something over there by QXC's 12 o'clock base, but those turrets actually took out whatever was in that medevac. I just caught it right at the last second, but mOoNan clears up his bottom right expansion, still not really mining from it. QXC sending a ton of Marines over there to just finish that off. Now sending tanks and Marines back to that planetary fortress at 6 o'clock. If he can manage to kill off this planetary fortress, I think that's pretty much going to be game over, as mOoNan has no real income right now after that's gone.
Yeah, QXC actually pulling back, getting some of these forces that looks like they were just on move command, so he does get a couple of extra shots. Now he's going to move back in, getting those tanks before sieging up, and now he will fall back before they can actually start shelling out the damage. In the meantime, a ton of SCVs have been constantly repairing this planetary fortress, and now QXC is just going to drop some Marines onto these tanks. They won't actually do the damage. What will do the damage is the tanks of mOoNan that are sieged up. So in the meantime, QXC just has more and more forces being rallied here to kind of the center of the map. So many tanks, and it looks like he is just moving into mOoNan's base, and I think this might be all she wrote for FXOmOoNan.
If mOoNan can hold it off, though, he's going to be in actually probably the best position he's been all game, but it just looks difficult now because his forces are kind of all over the place. QXC is still expanding, and these tanks are just doing a ton of damage, but mOoNan is finally sieged up, trying to kill off one tank at a time, and I think he might be able to clean this up. He did sack a lot of SCVs to be able to do it, but yeah, now QXC is only up by 43 supply instead of 80. He does have more bases on the map, though, and mOoNan actually kept his planetary fortress alive. I don't know how this game could go on forever at this point. I mean, even though mOoNan's been at a huge disadvantage, he's still able to expand. He's still got that 6 o'clock base running pretty smoothly, but
yeah, I mean, mOoNan just sacked around 20 SCVs. He's actually going on the offensive here, which is exactly what he needs to do if he wants to remain in this game. The tanks are falling victim to these 3-3 Marines. They're actually not upgraded. They only have, or excuse me, they only have one upgrade to their weapons. So 3-3 Marines will be able to tear through that. Just go into QXC's vision for a couple of seconds. He has so much of the map actually covered with Zonaga towers, with Marines just at random expansions. And, I mean, if mOoNan's going to come back, it's going to have to be now, because as soon as all these production abilities start kicking in for QXC, he's going to have, yet again, another huge army.
And QXC is researching nitro packs right now for Reapers. Reaper movement speed increase.
Well, he also got the Terran
building armor?
Building armor. He got the high-sec tracking. I mean, he's gotten a lot of these obscure upgrades that you typically don't get just because he's had the economy so far in the game.
Yeah, and mOoNan's money is under 100 right now. He's not mining from his 6 o'clock base. He's only got 31 harvesters and about 100 minerals per minute coming in from that natural, which is nearly completed as well. So yeah, QXC, as long as he can just keep building things, he's looking fine. Look at the production tab alone. You see 5 units building at a time for QXC, almost nothing for mOoNan. He just started a few Marines, but QXC's ahead on upgrades still, 3-3 against 2-2. He's got 2 O tanks against 1 O tanks from mOoNan, and he's got the bases. I mean, really, this game is what I would consider to be over. It's just got to be played out.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. If mOoNan can get these extra bases up, well, as I say that, it looks like QXC is not having any more of this. He's sending this huge squadron of Marines to actually take out this new base of mOoNan. And mOoNan maybe should, or maybe might just kind of leave the game from here on out. He does have a pretty big force, maybe ramping up for one last big attack, but QXC is ready for it. He has the superior upgrades for his tanks, and I think both players are at 3-3, but he just has the superior everything. mOoNan is actually at 2-2 on his Marines, so mOoNan's definitely playing from behind right now.
Yeah,
has been almost all game. So
yeah, look at, I don't know why mOoNan just did like a parachute drop on 8 Marines on the far right side of the map, but QXC has 2 medevacs loaded up with 16 Marines, about to drop here at the Planetary Fortress and prevent the last little mining operation that mOoNan's got at all. He just shut that down with a handful of Marines there. mOoNan responding with some Marines and medevacs of his own, but QXC, he just has too much stuff, man. He's all over the place. He's ready. He's protecting all of his expansions just fine. I don't know what QXC is going to have to actually kill to end this game. He's up by 80 supply. He's got the superior upgrades even in the middle of the map now. They're just thinning each other out. It's just a matter of time. QXC now sieging up, going to get some big blasts on those Marines, and yeah, I don't know what mOoNan could even hope to do at this point. He's got 30 minerals. He's got only 27 SCVs at the 35-minute mark. That is just a bad sign all around. And QXC is getting vehicle weapons level 3 as well right now.
Yep, another drop for QXC onto this Planetary Fortress, which almost has its mineral field completely mined out. He's not even engaging the Planetary Fortress. He's just waiting for mOoNan to actually devote a siege tank over there. Looks like they are on hold position. And QXC is just going to let these things be shelled. So, another big attack actually ramping up for QXC here, right outside the natural. This might be kind of all she wrote. Is there is some tanks over on the, yeah, he's just going to GG out. There's really no hope in him holding that. So QXC will advance on to the round of 32 here. And I believe that means it's going to be playing against Idra, actually, in the round of 32.
Most likely, and I can't wait to see that. QXC versus Idra from MLG DC is still one of my favorite MLG memories, and I'm hoping these guys can show us some great games in the next round here. But we do have another cast from the round of 64. I'm going to drop the stream once again and make some more changes. I'm sorry, guys. Obviously, these games are live. I can't just put the stream up and down throughout the games, but we'll get into it as soon as we possibly can. Just hold tight, and we'll try and get it fixed.